of curating beauty for others into creating something entirely your own. I'm Sarah, and this is Creatives Processing, where creatives reveal their process and process what it means to create. In this episode, I'm talking with prop and interior stylist turned homewares entrepreneur, Kira Corbin. Kira's transformative creative journey touches on something I think about constantly: the balance between creative growth and creative identity. For years, she perfected the art of curating and arranging objects to tell stories for clients, magazines, and cookbooks. She became incredibly skilled at translating concepts into visual experiences. But at some point, that mastery itself became the challenge. Kira needed new creative mountains to climb. What I love about our conversation is how honest Kira is about the uncomfortable parts of creative growth. The 2-year development process for her homewares line that tested her patience, the factory negotiations where she had to advocate for her artistic vision, the moments of questioning whether she was chasing the right goals or just chasing something that looked impressive from the outside. We dive deep into her styling process, from the initial client brief all the way to the intuitive moment when a composition feels just right. We explore how travel and cultural curiosity inform her creative work, why she chose Portugal for manufacturing her homewares line, Standard Affair, and her philosophy about the human element of creativity in an increasingly automated world. But this conversation goes beyond process and logistics. It's about creative courage, the willingness to stop being excellent at something familiar and start being terrible at something new. It's about redefining success on your own terms and learning to measure progress by internal growth rather than external validation. Okay, let's dive in. Here's my conversation with Kira Corbin. So you studied graphic design in Buenos Aires. Then you've transformed that into being a prop stylist, and you've now launched your first homewares line, Standard Affair. Can you talk to me a little bit about how you got started in your creative fields?
Okay, why creativity? Part of me is like, I don't know. Why are you drawn to the things you're drawn to? It just happens naturally. You're just kind of born the person that you're born, right? And I think that and that's true. I think I was born the person I was born. So, for whatever reason, I was going to go down this path. And as a little side note, my father is an engineer. He works in the computer field. And people are always, and all of his daughters, he had 3 daughters, all of them are very creative. We all went into creative fields. And they'd always say to him, oh, it's so weird, Steve, that your daughters are so creative and you're the super techie guy. And he's like, do you not understand that I am super creative? He's like, I'm, creating technology. We're inventing ideas that have never existed before. I mean, he started back in the 70s and 80s, when that was all really new. So maybe it's nurture too, maybe it comes from being around creative thinking. Maybe he wasn't a painter, but definitely creative thought processes, right? I do remember I definitely was a very emo teenager, where I'd spend hours in my room listening to music and painting and writing poetry and stuff. And I do remember though it wasn't a decision point, but I remember having sort of a realization as a teenager that you could go into, I don't know, a trade or some other sort of career path, right? That's more maybe about, I don't know, you could be an accountant or you could be a mechanic or something. And those are all skills that are important and you need to be really smart to do those. But I had this realization that reading books and listening to music and going to museums, or doing all the things that I enjoy doing, traveling the world, learning a new language, all of these things I realized actually made me a stronger artist also. So there was this idea, and I think I'm even still not able to really capture exactly what it is, but there's this idea that I can make myself a better person by exposing myself to more ideas or different things, or sort of living a more, in my opinion, from my perspective, a full life. And that will make me stronger as a professional. And I loved the idea that those two things could be tied together. Like, I'm not really sure that traveling makes you a better accountant.
Sure.
Like, I don't know, like maybe there's an accountant who would argue with me, but it's like they seem to be like separate skills. Whereas like when you're a creative, your whole life is the thing that builds your brain and your thought processes and your catalog and library of references. It's and being a creative is about sort of having a lot of ideas or having a lot of references, being able to kind of tie things together. So the more you like educate yourself, the better, like the more possibilities you have, the better output you can potentially have. The more you put in, the more you can put out. There's like a saying about
because like
output,
you're not
right?
like
So,
I'm gonna do like a European exploration journey and learn how to use accounting software in 7 different countries. Like, it's like math,
no,
like you're not going to learn like different techniques of math. Like
totally.
math is like foundational versus like
Right.
art
It's like
is
a different
subjective.
skill kind of. Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. It's so subjective. And I think that all those things that you do like really can serve you as a creative. So I loved the idea of going into some sort of creative field for that reason, because I felt like it could be really integrated with just my overall life.
Was
And
that
that like they can
something,
be really synergistic.
was this love of travel something that your family did when you were younger? Like what brought
No,
about this love of this curiosity or
I, that's such a great question. I don't know. I had never, uh, gone anywhere except for maybe Florida a couple times as a kid on vacation. We always stayed in the state. I didn't travel internationally, I think, until I did an exchange in high school in my junior year. I went to Argentina for a year, and then I ended up going back later for college. But I just knew there was a really big world out there and a lot to see. And I was like a suburban kid who was not exposed to a lot, but I just had such a like yearning for everything. It's like when you can't wait to learn how to drive because you just want to get out of there and go and be free and do things. Like it was that feeling of like, I just really want to get out into the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have like travel books that you poured over as a kid? Like any places you were like, I'm fantasizing about like, I can't wait until I go blank.
I no, not specifically, but I do remember thinking like, because I have Portuguese ancestry, and like I was like, I'll probably live in Europe at some point. Like that's a big goal. Like I really want to do that. So when I did the exchange, that's why I went to South America, because I was like, well, where are these places that are really interesting that maybe I aren't so obvious or that I wouldn't necessarily go to and spend an extended period of time there.
Yeah.
So
What was that first year for that study abroad in high school like? Because that like whet your appetite then for like, oh my gosh, I'm living in another country.
it
This is such
did.
an amazing opportunity.
I felt at times like, really lonely and really far from my friends and family. But I think maybe because I'm an introvert and because I'm okay spending a lot of time alone, like being there was like enough. Being there was really cool, and learning the first like month I didn't understand anything. And I had taken Spanish in high school, whatever, for a
Yeah.
couple of years. It wasn't like you think you can get around and then you get there and you're like, I have no idea what's going on. And then it just started happening. Like then I just started understanding, and I couldn't talk yet. Like it's always, always understand first, and then speaking comes
Well, it's like different parts of
later.
your brain that are being activated. Like I
Yeah.
studied, so ahead of going to Japan last summer, I studied on Duolingo for a year and I focused on like key phrases with a tutor to like feel confident in ordering.
Yeah.
And I like memorized those. And then I guess I had matched the accent good enough. And then once I would say those things, be like, oh, and they'd want to continue the conversation. I'd just be like,
Yeah.
I got nothing. I have absolutely
I know,
nothing.
totally. That
So
happens to me now a lot of places when I travel, like they're just like, "Ooh," and I'm like, oh, like, especially when I go to Portugal because I look Portuguese, they're like, oh, I thought you were Portuguese. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't know. Like lost. But that part, Like when it started to click, when I started to actually hear words and be like, oh, I know what that means. I loved that sensation. Like, you know how like there's like 7 different learning styles or skill sets or something, like different people get different things, right? We don't all have the same things.
Yeah.
Some people, you know, are really good at math or they're not. Like I'm really bad at dates, and like history is like hard for me. It's like I can get like, I know the gist, like I know the vibe. I think like I'm a sensitive soul. So it's like I remember the sensations of what that era was about. But like, oh my God, the names and the dates thing, like it's just not,
Yeah.
I can't do that. I don't know. Like it doesn't work for me. But like I can copy that accent, you know? Like
Yeah.
I can hit that noise, which is like so satisfying.
What made you explore graphic design in college?
I had no idea what I wanted to do coming out of high school. I got back from my exchange. I did my whole junior year abroad. And when I got back, it was in my senior year, and it was probably like October or November. And everybody's like already like knows what college they're going to. And I like literally haven't thought about this at all. Like at all. Like I was like, oh, I was supposed to be doing that. Like I was supposed to have like applied for college by now. Like I had no idea. Like I don't know. And so I was, yeah, and I didn't know what to do. But I had a zine with my best friend.
I didn't know
And
this.
yes, I did. I had a zine for a couple of years in high school, like most of high school, I think. And I loved magazines, like just like obsessed with magazines. And I just like I wanted to make the pretty pictures for magazines. Like I always knew that. And then I had my zine, and that was like fun to do. And I just thought it was going to be something in there. But I didn't know what that was because I didn't know what the organizational chart of a magazine masthead, you know, like I don't know what those jobs are. Like I didn't live in a city. I didn't have, to me, it was like the only job you could get was like a doctor or a lawyer or something you go to college and major in, you know? So anyway, I was in art class one day and I was talking to my art teacher, and she's like, well, what about graphic design? Because you really like doing the magazine and you like, you know, you like doing your fanzine, you like laying things out. So like graphic design. And I started to look into it and I was like, cool, actually, great, let's do that. And I thought that like maybe if you were laying out the images, that maybe you would have some say in how they're created.
Sure.
Which is not true.
Nope.
But like, I don't know. So I just did that. You know, I was like, okay, I got to do a thing and I'm going to do that thing. And it was really clear to me, like second or third year. I mean, I finished my degree, but the last year was so painful. I knew that I did not want to do that work when I got out of school. I think the education itself was great and really useful because, you know, any art school probably in different ways, but like really like what we were learning about was color theory and visual hierarchy and like how, you know, how to make visual messages. So all of that, I think, ended up being like really practical and serving me, you know, for the path I did end up taking. But like, you can't go to college to be a prop stylist. And I didn't even know that existed until I like just bumped into it and was like, wait, this is a thing, you know?
Yeah. How did you bump into it?
Well, I loved magazines and I had to do an internship for school. And so I got an internship at Glamour magazine. And I like, you know, I came back from Argentina. I did a 3 month internship there in the fashion closet. And that's where I got to start to see some of the different roles, right? Like the sittings editor or the market editor or, oh, and then there's, you know, the graphic design department's like way over there. Like there's like all these different departments.
They're in a closet somewhere. Just
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I was in a closet all day long. So, but that's where I started to really see like all the different dimensions and possibilities and like how much more niche it got, like how much more broken down into different paths. And I met an editor there at Glamour who is the sittings editor. And the sittings editor is the one who does all the photo shoots, right? Or, you know, works for the magazine internally, but is the one who takes clothing and like styles celebrities or whoever for shoots. And I started assisting her. Like, I was interning at the magazine, but I would start going on shoots with her. And man, that was so fun and so fascinating. Like I got to be on photo shoots and I'd like just moved to New York City and like, wow, like it was so
All
cool.
my dreams have come true. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of,
Yeah.
So to save some time here and not go through all the million steps, like basically I met her, I went off, did a few other things, and I had interned a few more places, but eventually like New York's expensive. I needed actually to make money and needed a job. But her and I kept in touch and I would still assist for her every once in a while. And she ended up getting a job at Gilt Group when Gilt Group was like really like fresh and like brand new and like so hot and so cool. And so she brought me in and I like got a job there. And it was when it was pretty early days still. It was a really small styling team still. I think I was, I don't know, one of the first 10 people on the styling team. And at Gilt, you had to do everything. So I had been coming from a fashion background, but there you do men's on figure, women's on figure, you do handbag, shoes, like all the still life stuff, home goods. So that really started to open me up to different categories. And then they would bring in freelancers sometimes. So we'd meet different freelance photographers and different stylists. And that's like where I started to see also like, oh, there's this other path. Like specifically Gilt started a food website for a little while called Gilt Taste.
Oh yeah.
And yeah. And so it was a lot of freelancers that would come in to do the taste shoots because they needed a food stylist and like a prop style, the other stylists that was so specific that they weren't really able to staff that, like to use a stylist from like the fashion team for that. So they would bring in outside stylists and I met all these people and I was like, wow, you're just doing shoots for like food and wine every day and cookbooks. And like, this is so cool. And then I went that way.
Yeah. So like you were styling on figure models, working with like,
Yeah.
products, but then, what was it about prop styling and going into, because you ended up doing like more food styling, more prop styling versus like styling on bodies. So what was it about the direction you went in that really struck you?
I really loved fashion, but I also think that I found the fashion were a little difficult.
Sure.
Like I, how do I want to say? I just like, I'm not a big partier. I don't know.
Mm.
I
The
don't think
culture,
it,
I guess, of
yeah,
if you want to
like,
like
it's
be
like, can be,
successful in that industry.
some of the stereotypes are true. There are cool people in fashion, but a lot of the stereotypes I experienced like pretty extensively, like very big egos, lots of drama, a lot of disrespect, lots of partying, drugs, poor diets, you're not allowed to have a lunch break, like just like stuff that's just, I don't know, like it
Yeah.
wasn't, the fashion was fun and the shoots were thrilling, but those social dynamics hurt. Like I didn't like that, and that didn't make me feel fulfilled or like healthy,
Sure.
I have a feeling that might be really different today.
I've been
Because
curious about that.
I feel like there is so much talk, especially since the pandemic, like about mental health and I don't know, like I feel like things are changing and, this was 15, 17 years ago. Like this was a
Yeah.
while ago, so it was a different industry maybe. And I really hope it's changed. I get the impression it has. I feel like I hear good things.
Yeah.
But at that time, I just like, I don't know. It was hard for me. So,
Sure.
but the still life people, it was like a different personality, the people who worked in still life, and they all just felt like more approachable, quirkier, just like it, I felt more at home there, I think. And I also really liked about prop styling that I had more control over the end result. Because like with wardrobe, like you can put together a great outfit, but like if your model is just can't bring it, then like okay,
Yeah.
the photos didn't turn out great. And So, but like with still life, it's like I'm the one setting up the stuff. I'm the one tying the bow, like doing the thing. So I felt like I had a lot of really direct impact on the final image. And and some of that can be really meditative too. They're like quieter moments, like kind of, sitting with a necklace and like shaping the chain so can be sort of uh like almost introspective, So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I think that just appealed to me, and I, you know, decided to go that way.
Yeah. And you've been freelance for quite some time now. We met what? It was oh my gosh, it's almost been 10 years at this point since we've met, where I
Yeah,
hired
I'm sure.
you. Yeah, where I hired
Yeah.
you when I was working at Saga City Media to do some
Hmm.
prop styling for me. It was
Yeah.
you and your partner Scott, on photography, but I mean, it was always that was like way before I went freelance. So being able to see like these two rad creatives like building a life together, freelancing, and just like creating beautiful work, which is like inspiring. And like definitely like when you think about
Oh,
like,
thanks.
you want to you want to work with good people and people that like, because that was always my big thing about like setting up crews for photo shoots. It's like I don't want to work with assholes, and I want to work with people who, they bring different perspective, but like they get that we're all working towards the same end goal here to make something really beautiful. And it's not about
Yeah.
ego. So that was always like with Kira and Scott, that was always, we were going to have a good
Yeah.
time.
It's not about, no, totally. I mean, guilt is the only full time job I've ever had.
That's wild.
I worked there for about 2 years. It was like my first job, my first ever job that paid me a real paycheck, and then I left and I assisted for probably another year after that. And then I just started doing it, and I've been doing it ever since.
Yeah. Can you, so, we've worked together a bunch of times, but we've worked together mostly on editorial, which
Mhm.
is it's a whole beast of just tiny budgets and, limited resources. But I would love if we could walk through the process from start to finish of you being hired to do prop styling for a commercial shoot. So what does that look like
Okay.
from, you're hired, then what? Like you get the brief, what does that look like all the way to the end?
So first, a client will reach out. It's usually, especially with commercial work, it's usually an agency because it's like multi-tiered. So you might have a client, that client has hired a creative agency, the creative agency hires a producer. The producer reaches out to see if you're available on such and such dates to hold for a shoot. Um, Usually they'll reach out to like a few different people, that the agency has spec'd. They're like, oh, we're interested. We would like to maybe work with these people. They'd be a good fit for the shoot. So the producer sees who's available, and then they present the options, I think, to the client, and then, they pick. So I might get released because, they went with somebody else, or they're going to confirm. So they
Sure. So
confirm
they'll
the
put a
date.
hold on you for a little bit first.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, they'll just say like, hey, that first week of July, are you available? We have a shoot. Can you hold it? We'll come back to you, like let us, and then,
Do they always get back to you?
yeah, usually.
Okay, that's
And
good.
I mean, if they don't, like, like I'll check in with them. I'll be like, hey, you've got this hold. Like, how's that
Yeah.
looking? And sometimes they'll be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot to tell you, they went with somebody else, or the dates changed, or actually that shoot fell out because the product's not going to arrive, or, things happen. I don't feel like I get ghosted a lot.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Like I don't think that's, common for me anyway. But so that's where you get to like, once you're confirmed, you're like confirmed. Like, I at this point, well, so then the next thing is you're going to have a creative call where the agency can walk you through the deck. And the deck is really, it explains like the purpose of the shoot. So who's the client? What is it that they need done? Like, why are we shooting? What are we shooting? Right. So there's like a broad view and an overview, and then there's a shot list, so we go from broad to like specifically like, okay, here's the 10 shots that we want to do, and this one's going to be like this, and this one's going to be like this, and we talk through all of that. So then I kind of have and they usually send the deck over first. So what I like to do is print it. I'm like very old school. Like I like to have a printed physical thing that I can look
Yeah.
at, and I write notes with a pen. Like, um, so then I know what we're doing. And usually after that, the producer will ask me for an estimate, based on what you're seeing and what they're asking for. Like, what do you think the budget for this is going to be? Sometimes they'll come to me and be like, hey, this is the budget we have. And that's fine. And that's usually tentative until we have a creative call.
Yeah.
But there's always like some negotiation in there, and not negotiation because like the prop budget's like not, those aren't my fees for the prop budget. That's just like, if you want this stuff, this is what it costs to get done. So it's not like negotiating, oh, sorry, in that way where you have to like advocate for yourself kind of, but more like, all right, well, if you guys want an elephant, like it's going to cost this much money and this is what we have to do, But
Yeah.
like if you want to cut the elephant, then great, we can cut the budget way down, like that kind of thing,
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a silly example, but so then we like lock in a budget. At that point, I will probably get an advance for, I usually get 75% of my expenses, which is the prop budget and my assistant fees. Because I like to pay my assistants like right away. Like I can be net 30 or net 60 for my fees, but like I want to pay my assistants right away. Lately, though, people are really doing what's it called? Like payroll for assistants. So I don't always. It's becoming less and less common for me to pay my assistants directly.
Okay. But in the past though, with getting like 75% of your expenses up front, were those terms that you would set with them, or was it more like here's what the agency can do for you?
I think that an advance is like industry standard.
Okay.
I've been offered 100% before. I like to take a little bit less, honestly, because I don't like to have to refund.
Yeah.
Because it just gets really messy with bookkeeping. Like, I would rather just get 75% and then like figure out where I end up, because I never go over budget. But I might use the whole budget,
Yeah.
And so, but then I know like, okay, now you only owe me like this little bit left, right? Like, and then that they can make the payment when they make it. And to me, that's making the refunds is just like more back and forth kind of with like writing checks and money. So
What prerequisites do you have for setting yourself up for a successful shoot? Like what does research look like? What tools are you using to make sure like day of is as planned for and as foolproof as it could possibly be?
like really the tools for me are the props, I guess.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's the stuff. That's my job, is to get the stuff to set the scene, to bring. So I always try to think of more things that maybe they haven't asked me for, but could ask me for. So if we're doing like, an ice cream shot, they might ask for, and if this is a food shoot, I don't do food. A food stylist takes care of the food. But for example, the food stylist might be bringing ice cream cones, and they might ask me to bring an ice cream cone stand. Like one of those little things you can kind of, great, cool. I will source 3 of those that are different. One that holds 2 cones, one that holds 3, one that's taller, one that's shorter, one that's a color, one that's clear, like just whatever, some different options that fit the art direction. But I'll also source some cups just in case the cone doesn't work. And I'll source some spoons because if we have cups, then we need a spoon. It's like those kinds of things. Like what else could potentially happen? Like we might need an ice cream scoop. Like we might need some paper napkins. We might need, so just kind of really filling out like what else could they potentially ask me for, or what else could the scene potentially need?
Now, is that common sense, or is that coming from years of experience being on shoots and just having the experience of like a client's on set, they're like, "Oh, where's blank?" And you're like, "Oh, we didn't think about having that on set."
I think that it's experience, but I also think that like any prop stylist listening to this is like, yeah, of course, you need options. Like
Yeah.
it's like kind of the job, right? Like,
Yeah.
And I started learning this when I was assisting too. It wasn't just from me showing up. Because, I mean, a client loves to be like, do you have this thing that I never even told you I wanted or even like suggested we might even need, But like, it's just that because like when you're in the moment, even for them, like they might envision a shot a certain way, but maybe the way it's shaping up, it's kind of taking a slightly different turn, or maybe that's just not really working. So, what kind of pivot can we make? Or we got to the location and actually they have this thing over here that we didn't realize, but we could use this. And so having options just helps everybody like adapt more.
Yeah.
Earlier in my career, I will say that like if somebody asked me for an option that I didn't have, I felt like a failure for not having it.
Oh, I
And
bet.
and now I don't, because I do bring a lot of options and I really
Yeah,
think
you
through
do.
all my shots. So like like I'll just be like, oh man, like that, actually that's a great idea, but we don't have that one. What I do have is this, and I have this, and we could also potentially do this, like, so I'll work with them and just try to kind of let them, see the options and see what we can
Yeah.
figure out.
And
You
you mentioned
can't, you
before,
can't think of everything. You can't bring
no,
everything.
absolutely not.
You do have a budget. You do have space constraints. You do have time constraints. Like, so,
Yeah.
you know,
And you mentioned before, based on the art direction. So you're getting art direction from the agency who is developing it in tandem with the client based on their goals and what they're trying to achieve. But hearing like having different vehicles for holding ice cream cones, having, different colors, different materials, how are you collaborating with agencies to help deepen what the art direction for the shoot could be? Or is a lot of that at that point, once you get like that standard art direction, are you extrapolating what you think fits within that art direction?
the second one. For commercial work in particular, it's very like prescriptive. Like it's very decided already. They have typically had a lot of internal conversation, between the agency and the client, and even done like rounds of, the agency may have had to like propose an idea and then review it and then repropose, and, they have to get it signed off on. So a lot of times they've really honed in like what the idea is, like what the idea needs to be. From there, I think I still fill out that world and add to that world, but it's different than editorial work where there's a lot of freedom in editorial work usually. The fees are much lower, but it's also like really artistic. Like so often magazines would, maybe give me a mood board or maybe just be like, oh, I want some bright colors, but they kind of were like, we want you to do you. We want you to sort of bring your vision and have fun and just, maybe here's just a couple things to get you started, but kind of like bring stuff and let's play and let's just make something beautiful. With cookbooks, I almost never get like any art direction, like,
Really?
oh yeah, there's like almost never even a mood board. Like it's just kind of like,
So
here's
how are
the
you for
project, here's the
cookbooks?
person.
You've done beautiful work with cookbooks. So who are you collaborating with on those to like define like what is the overall visual
Usually
look?
I like basically art direct those. I mean, because like I'll talk to the photographer and they'll be like, look, this is what the project is and this is who the author is and this is what's important about the book or the recipes or this person, and then of course I'll like look them up online and kind of be like, okay, what's their vibe, like who are they, I've done a lot of cookbooks with Evan Sung, and who's a food photographer, and he like we'll have these conversations, and I remember a lot of times like I would go and kind of like I would like make a Pinterest mood board, I would just kind of start like looking and be like, what do I feel like is going to be the right thing? Like kind of what do I want to do? What excites me? What feels like me? But also like, what's interesting, right? And going to kind of like also represent this author. And so I would usually like put together a board and then I'd talk to him about it, show it to him, be like, well, what do you think? Because I kind of think maybe we should do like these kinds of surfaces and maybe it's these colors, and he'd give me his feedback, yeah, no, whatever. Like, and then I just go do it.
Yeah.
Like, and then I just go run, go play and get all the stuff and bring it to set. And then And then when you're on set, you collaborate to kind of put the shot together. So that's like a really different way of working
Yeah.
than commercial work, which is just, there are so many layers of like people with opinions that I definitely think I'm still being hired for my eye and for my style. It's just that I have to like fit a little bit more into like a tighter brief, something that's like already very sort of determined. Like, this is what we're doing here.
Yeah. And I would imagine too, it sounds like with both of those, you're setting parameters. Either it's coming from an agency that already has a defined art
Yeah.
direction, or you're working with the food photographer to develop what the art direction would be. But at least like
Yeah.
before you even get to the shoot, you're establishing like, what is the look and feel, so that you
Yes.
can narrow down what your choices are.
Yes. That has to be there, because if there's no direction, then where do you go?
Yeah.
Like, how do you know what to do if you don't have a North Star? Like, how, you got to have something.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that very much has to be, and that's maybe a red flag, if somebody comes to you and they're like, we don't have anything, or like, we want you to do it. Because also that takes extra time. So there should be some budget, like if somebody wants you to develop art direction or something. But honestly, anytime that an agency comes to me and is like, we have all these ideas for shots, we've already talked about them with our client, but we love your work, so we're really interested in your input on them. Whenever I give them input, they're like, they're like, no, okay, we already know that client's already like approved this, and the client already like, has this idea. Like, we're already kind of locked into this with you. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. But like,
Yeah.
And
like, I'm so curious, like, because you're being paid as a prop stylist, and I'm sure within some agencies, there's an industry standard for like what that role is and what is expected of you. But I'm sure there are some instances that are definitely like some red flags, where it's like, we want to hire you for styling, but we'd also like you to do the art direction. We'd also like you to do this. But they're just thinking like that's an all inclusive package. Like, when they get you, have you had experiences like that on set where you've been hired to do one thing and you show up and it's like, we're also expecting more from you?
yeah, I have had that experience.
Yeah.
And it's not usually like I show up to set. It's in that like pre-production phase that it becomes very clear that somebody, is going to step up and like make, actually flesh out this shot list, or actually, kind of put, maybe they're like, this is the general direction, but we need to like we need to niche it down to get specific about, how it's going to get applied in these different circumstances. And that, I've done that, and but it's just like, it is like, it's a little bit of a conversation to have, where I guess like the time, like that takes time, so I've had to like, there was like one client in particular where it's like, okay, well, I can do this, but like, these are extra days. This isn't just like the prep for the shoot. This is like, I need to sit down and like think through all your shots for you. And then you want me to present all these concepts like to your team so that they can like approve all the concepts and then potentially give feedback and have revisions. Like, that is like an art direction phase, which is fine. Like, I was happy to do, it was like fun. It was a fun project. But it's just, it's like it's not the same job, and it's not automatically included.
Yeah. So you're definitely like setting boundaries.
I say that for commercial work, but like it kind of is included for like editorial work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like for that cookbook,
depending
like
on what
it kind
art
of is.
you're working with.
Like the cookbook thing, I'm kind of like, you just like, that's the way it's going to go. But that's like kind of great. Like, you kind of want that. Like, you kind of want to just like do your thing, like they're sort of different things.
Yeah. How do you, when you're sourcing props, do you have particular places that you like pulling from? Like, how are you doing research based on the art direction that you're given for like, oh, I have a mental database of all these places that I know are going to have great props for this? Or are you going to vintage stores? Like, what does that look like?
I source anywhere. Like, it really depends on what city I'm in. Because like New York and LA have resources. There are prop houses where you can go get stuff, and they have tons of stuff. That's wonderful. So you have, sort of limitless options. You can also oftentimes rent from shops. I buy vintage. I buy from big box stores. I buy off marketplace. I mean, really, like restaurant supply stores. Like, what is the thing I need, and kind of where is the best, most clever way to get it?
Yeah. And is that a reason why you launched your prop rental in Portland? Because like there wasn't really one available?
Kind of. I will say that my prop rental is not like, it's not really a business. Um, it's like a way to meet people, and it's like a little cash on the side. But I
Yeah.
think that Portland doesn't have prop rentals because it doesn't support prop rentals. It's not a big enough industry to actually support that.
Yeah.
So I have always collected props. Even when I lived in New York, I had a small studio and collected some of my own props. And it's nice to have like your kind of home base collection because you have a place to start from. You have some like tried and true favorites. Like when I'm traveling to Europe or wherever, I can like go to the flea market and buy some special things and bring them back, and nobody else has them. And that's so fun. But primarily in New York, I was still really largely renting from prop houses. And after moving to Portland, I really had to start being my own resource because there weren't other ones. So the way I source for jobs here is very different than how I source when I'm working in New
Hmm.
York or LA.
Let's talk about once you're on set. You mentioned before, the almost like meditative quality of being able to play around with getting the right swoop of a necklace or, the right placement of objects within a composition. Can you talk to me about like where does that aha moment come from when you're styling a scene? And I mean, it could go on endlessly of there are so many different combinations that we can play with here. Like, how do you know
Totally.
within you, like, nope, this is right, this is done?
One of the things I love to say, I say this all the time on set, is like, there are some very clear wrong answers in styling, but there are tons of right answers.
Oh, I love that.
There's not just one right answer. Like, so sometimes you find a right answer and you know it, you feel it. You're just like, that's good, right? But sometimes maybe the client doesn't like it. So you're like, okay, we can find another one. Like we could, because there are plenty of right answers. But I do think that it's like, this is the part that is the hardest about my job to describe, but like I would love to hear how other creatives describe this. Because I think there's just like intuition, like you just kind of know. Like suddenly everything is balanced. Suddenly, like it just feels right, you
Because you
know?
mentioned, in college you learned these fundamentals like color theory,
Yeah,
hierarchy. So you're applying some of those principles there too, size
sure.
hierarchy
I
within a
love a
composition.
triangle. Yeah. I
Oh,
love
who doesn't love a
varying height.
triangle?
But well, yeah, because it's like the rule of thirds, like
Yeah.
there's stuff there that like can get you started, right? Or if you're getting kind of stuck, you can be like, well, hold on, hold on. Okay, well, I've got six. Maybe I take one away. Maybe we go five, like odd numbers. Like that always kind of helps. So there are some of those rules, those design rules that, are pretty universal. Like sometimes those can come in handy to kind of help get you in or out of a bind. I don't know if there's like, I've, I've been asked a few times to like teach a styling workshop.
Oh.
And I'm like, I don't know how to do that because this is the one part. Like, I can teach you like how to like put together a budget. I can teach you how to put together like an estimate for a job. Like, those are very sort of like, this is the industry standard. The shoot day is 10 hours. Your rate's going to be this. Overtime starts at this time. Like, there's just like, wow. And then we can talk about like, I don't know, sourcing or the different places you can source things. But when it comes to this actual styling, like, it really is just like, that's just where flow happens. And that's just where, like, I don't know, like, I don't think anymore.
Mm.
Like, like, it just starts to happen. Like, that's where I just feel. That's where I just let that part come, like, take over.
Yeah.
And that, even in commercial work, is still true, even though commercial work is still, it's like so much more, prescribed and everything's kind of more rigid. Like there are still these moments, albeit much smaller than some of my other projects. Because like with interiors, I feel like that's much more expressive and like free, and there's more freedom, I guess, in that. And then like I was saying with cookbooks, those can be really creatively open.
Yeah.
But even in that commercial bit, like I think there's still just that little part of like your soul that has to lead for like a minute or two.
And what does it feel like? Because I love you saying, you know, there are so many right answers, but I can imagine that you think you found the right answer, then with the various amount of stakeholders that are on set,
Yeah.
someone may swoop in and say like, "Nope, I don't like that." And is that soul crushing, or have you over time have you been like, "Okay, it's just that's just part of the job and it's like, we try again."
It's only soul crushing when that person is like, I just don't like it. And it's like, okay,
Nothing
but
constructive.
why?
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, but tell me why. Because because ultimately, one of the stylists I worked with always used to say this, like, we work in the service industry. So, yes, like I am there to serve you. You have hired me to provide a service for you to achieve what you need to achieve. So, if this is not working for you, okay, why not? What is the thing that's not working? Because I bet we can fix that thing. And, usually we're able to. And it's not like this is awful, the whole thing. Like, usually it's just like, oh, I love this. This is great. And this is great. And I love that. But, oh, you used this one flower and the client hates that flower. They have like a personal vendetta. So just like, can we swap the flower?
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Like,
What questions do you ask to get those answers?
it very much depends on the conversation and what they come at me with. But that's the question. Like, what is it about it that feels like it's not working to you? What are you seeing that doesn't feel right?
Hmm.
What would you like to change? How could it be better? How could it be different? What were you envisioning? What were you thinking? What were you hoping that this would, be like? Because then if you can describe that, then I can achieve that.
Yeah.
But if it's not described, then I don't know if I can achieve it.
Yeah. Let's talk about, this pivot from styling to creating your own line. You're working with existing objects that you're sourcing to execute on somebody else's vision, where you're getting art direction from clients, from agencies, and you are helping to create that vision. So that's in service. And now this is now on the other side of things, where you're creating something that hasn't existed. So what brought about that pivot to wanting to start your own homewares line?
Creative growth, really.
Yeah.
Like that's like really like the core sort of like under simmering, I love styling, but I also, and I think I can answer this question in two ways, and I will, because one of them is like, why am I changing? Right? I interpret this question two ways. Why am I changing? And why do this thing? Like, why make objects? Right? And the reason why I'm changing is because I'm a creative.
Yeah.
And because we have to change.
Yeah.
Like we have to keep growing, when it stops. I was thinking about this, like the analogy between like working out, if you're doing these really hard workouts and then they get easy, it's just like you're not growing anymore. Like it's not hard. Yeah, I don't know. Like, are you still getting stronger? Like,
You've
no.
plateaued. No.
Exactly. So like you gotta keep growing, and I love styling, but I also have been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's not quite as thrilling or as challenging as it once was for me. But I don't want to just walk away from it either, because I really think it is like core to who I am. Like I just think I am a stylist. I think like the process of curating and arranging items. It's really integrated into the way I perceive the world around me, the way I process the world around me. When I had a shop briefly, I would come in, before the shop opened in the morning, and I would restyle, like re-merchandise the shelves. And that was another moment where like I really didn't like think during that time, you know. But I did a lot of thinking. Like
Yeah.
it was like meditative in that way,
I was
where
just
I
about
could
to
kind
say
of,
that. That sounds like that's like like almost like a daily ritual where like you can like
yeah,
meditate and compose your thoughts, but it's also practicing your craft too.
yeah, exactly. And shopping too, like, like I think it can sound so like shallow to be like, I shop for a living, but shopping is like, it is what I do for a living,
Yeah.
basically. But also, like shopping. So even before I became a prop stylist, like in college, like one of my favorite things to do in Buenos Aires was to go shopping. And I almost never bought things. And I don't mean like go shopping at like a Target. I mean
Yeah.
like go shopping at like in neighborhoods with like local commerce and like see that there's like a new coffee shop or see that there are these new, like there's a paper store or a bookstore or just, there's clothing stores, and all of those things are these creative endeavors by other people. But I think they're also really reflective of like that culture and that society and those people. Like you travel to different places, and when you go to their different, like it's civilization.
Yeah.
So I just think that it's like a way for me to observe people and people's ideas, you know? So it is like, it's a way I sort of like learn about the world around me and learn about the zeitgeist and learn about like where we all kind of are or aren't, or where this country or that country, like how they differ, or maybe, and so it's like, it's bigger than that. Like, I just feel like it's really like the certain tools or the skills that I've developed even before styling, like are just so well used in styling. And it really has to do with like objects and telling stories and how all of that comes together. So I think for me, I've spent so long looking at objects and so long collecting them and admiring them and thinking about how they influence our experiences, how they, represent us. Like we all choose different clothing and different objects in our homes. Those are, that's us expressing ourselves.
Oh yeah.
Um, that's a lot of my job as a prop stylist, right? Is to be like, okay, you want Gen Z camping? That looks like this. Here are the, here's the things that are going to put that story together. You want, high end, like these are the things that those people choose. These are the things that talk about that culture. So I really like have a real appreciation for objects are like very humble, but like they do a lot. Like they say a lot and they mean a lot. I think I just, after so long, it's like I started to have ideas. I think that the story often goes with a lot of founders, like, I was looking for a thing and I couldn't find it. There was a hole in the market, so I started my business. And I don't really feel that way.
Yeah.
I feel more like there's so much good stuff and I just love these things so much. And I have ideas too. And like, I want to play too. Like, that's what it feels like for me. And you have no idea how many times I was on set in, I've used a lot of food examples. I think those can just be more straightforward, but really most of my work, especially in recent years, is much bigger sets. The kind of thing where we like go into a house, like clear out the whole living room. I've got a truck full of furniture outside. Now it's a bedroom, like we're really, it's like much bigger stuff. And you have no idea how many times I've set up rooms or completely transformed environments, and the client or the agency or, other people just be like, oh my God, can you do this for me? Like, can you, wow, like I want this mug is so beautiful, or this vase is wonderful, or I love the bedding combo, and so for like a minute I was like, should I go into interior design? And it's not, after my soul searching, like that's not really the path I
Sure.
want,
Yeah.
but I like the things. And I think that curating the things for the photo shoot has been fun, right? But now it's like I know so many good things and I know what makes things really good and I like want real people to have that,
Mm,
not just for a photo, like not just for a split second and then we tear it down and put it back in bins and put it back on the truck. Like I want
yeah.
to really do that for people.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like my little branch out, where I'm like, I think that, and I don't think I'll stop styling because I think they're really synergistic, I get
Absolutely.
to really think through people and living and how we live and all of this. And it really informs, what I design and why.
Yeah. So what you design and why. So why was it homewares versus vases versus ice cream cone holders or anything like that? Like what was it about
I'm like, it will
homewares?
be there someday.
Who knows?
I have a big vision for this company. I want to do probably not ice cream holders, but I'm starting with dinnerware because in all of the categories that I'm interested in, I do think that like dinnerware is very fundamental for me. I have always loved eating. I've always loved cooking. I've always loved a farmer's market. I have a home garden. My career really started in food photography. Those were my first jobs. I got like a string of a few cookbooks and then I was like, okay, I'm not assisting anymore. I'm going to jump. I'm going to do it, And then I got shoots with Bon Appetit and Food and Wine. And like, I shoot food very infrequently now because I've grown kind of up and bigger and more into like lifestyle and interior. But food is still a part of that. But food was sort of like the beginning, and the foundation. And some of my favorite props are, like a hand thrown bowl with like a perfect little drip, like a something. Even when I had my shop briefly, ceramics were probably 60% of the selection, even though it was a
Mm.
store that was supposed to be for the home in general, right? So there was tabletop, there were candles, there were blankets, there's whatever, incense, magazines, cookbooks. It was, just like a nice home goods boutique with a variety of, but you could tell that was really my interest and my
Oh yeah.
strength is because there was a lot of ceramics. So it just felt obvious and natural that should be the place that I start. Um, so I've started with dinnerware. What's available currently is a dinnerware line and a table linens collection. There's going to be more to come. I am in the process of designing a glassware collection. And what I really want to do is start with setting the table, and then I want to decorate the table. And to me, that means like branching out into then like a vase or a candle holder, the things that we start to, and from there, I really want to go into decorating the home. It's dinnerware now, but I really hope to be able to expand to a lot of different categories.
So what does that look like? Because you've never developed a line for yourself before. This is a totally new venture for you, even though you have the background of your taste, um, what you look for in sourcing props for to create these scenes. So is it like sketch pad, sketching things out, what you're looking for? Are you partnering with a more technical designer to create these things? Tell me about that beginning process of like, okay, I have the idea now, but like how do I actually do this?
Okay, so for the dinnerware, I wanted to make dinnerware. Have never done this before. And the first step for me was to find a developer because I don't know how to do 3D drawings. I don't know how to do like factory specific technical drawing. But, I needed somebody to help me put my ideas on paper. And I found a wonderful person. And so the way it works for us is I put together a big deck of just all of my inspiration. So lots of photos, lots of, I have a big collection. Like I said, I've seen so many things. I've collected so many things over the years. Also at home, I have kind of a selection of my favorites. So it starts for me with like collecting all of the characteristics that I love, right? Like maybe I really love this proportion on a bowl, or maybe I really love this clay body, or I love these colors of glaze, or I love, this shape of foot, or all of those things, all those different sort of details that I have seen or experienced, and sizes. What should the volume be? How large or small should this thing be? So I kind of bring all the bits, and there's lots of photos and, all these like word specifications. And I put it all into a document. We start there. And then then there's a sketching process out of that where we'll kind of go back and forth together. And I know how to draw now I didn't know what to do. And I'm not a very good drawer. So I would just kind of like make crappy sketches in a notebook, and then, and I'm trying to tell her my ideas. And then she would come back with pencil sketches, but that were like, on a grid. And I saw how she started to do it, and that taught me how to do it. So we would go back and forth, and the sketching part is to really figure out not just like what it's going to look like on the outside, but how it's going to work on the inside. Because with clay, for example, you can't have one part of the plate be really thick and one part be really thin, because it won't dry evenly. And then that'll produce more seconds, or it'll fire incorrectly. Like there are certain sort of like technical considerations. So when you're drawing it, you can kind of see, okay, I'm going to have this thickness here, and this is how we're going to work around this joint and make sure it works this way. And like with my dishes, I just, they're not, a lot of brands, just as a side note, they want to start their own brand, and they just white label things.
Right.
They just like go to a factory, or don't even go there, like have, their representative go there, have the factory send them labels. And then they're like, oh, great. Okay. Well, I like this bowl. Can you put that glaze on it? And then they stamp their name on it. So that's very common for people to like not actually really design something. It takes a lot of time, and there's a cost, there's an investment to be made in that. So, but it was really important to me. Like, why am I doing this? Like the reason I'm doing this is because I have ideas that I want to bring to life. So
Yeah.
I resketched my plate like 20, 30,
Wow.
40, like, cause I just would move the curve, like, no, that just, like everything had to sing. Like it can't just be like good. Like there are a million plates out there. Like a plate's a plate. It's a plate, right? It's functional. Like whatever.
Yeah.
I really wanted them to be functional, but like beautiful, like perfect pieces of art, that feel soulful. And I think that those details, people don't automatically like perceive those details, but they feel them. Like I don't think that people would look at it and be like, oh, that's like the perfect proportion of distance between this line and that line. But when it's right, you feel it. Like you really, I think that makes a big difference. And so it would be millimeters sometimes where I'd be like, no, it has to, or this curve just needs to flatten out just the tiniest bit, or.
And I love you're saying, you're trying to create something perfect, but in one of the ways you described some of like the bowls and textures before was like there's like a perfect little just like a drip from the glaze or something. So like there's that imperfection too. So there's the
Yeah.
balance of like this feels almost mathematically harmonious, but also imperfect as any piece of human created
Yes.
stoneware can be.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Like I say perfect, but I don't mean it in that way where it's like everything's exactly the same and super sterile and rigid, or, I think that this is going to sound so cheesy or like cliche, but like there is like imperfect is kind of perfect,
Yes.
Sloppy is not perfect, but like alive and real is perfect.
Yeah.
Like I love buying seconds from ceramicists.
And seconds being like this is a
seconds,
quote unquote dud.
Exactly. Seconds
Yeah.
being the things that they don't sell, they don't sell at full price. They don't sell to their retailers or on their web shop or whatever. A lot of times ceramicists will have second sales, because
Mm.
they'll be like, oh, well, that bowl kind of got wonky, or the foot doesn't sit quite straight, or there's like a big bubble on the side, or, like things go wrong. And I love buying seconds from ceramicists because I know it. I know that those pieces in some way bother them because it wasn't what they were trying to do. But I think that when I have those pieces, what I really appreciate is that humanity. It reminds me of that. It reminds me that this person is not a machine, and that there are things out of their control, and that they have a vision for what passes for them. And it's not that I look at it and I'm like, oh, this didn't pass. This isn't your vision. Like, oh, I should, like, I get that, it wasn't 100% for them, but I think it almost makes it clearer to me, like what the real vision is in a way, and that they're really striving for that vision. Like seconds feel like such human pieces,
Yeah. Yeah.
they feel like extra authentic. So that's like a little side note, but
No, I love that. So you worked with a developer, you
yes.
resketched your plates and your bowls like upwards of 30 times. Once the sketch is done, is it done and then it goes, where does it go from that point? Or is there like, does it
So
continue to be iterative?
no, well, then we 3D print, um, which is plastic. So like, but it's, it's like, I'd love to cut out as much plastic as possible. Like we're really trying to do
Yeah.
this. We're trying to do good things in a good way.
Yeah.
But that one we found is like, it's very helpful because after that, you send it to the factory and they make a mold. And then you're really committed to that shape. So if you're going to make any changes, you've got to do it in the sketching process.
Yeah. And how did you determine a factory? Because you ended up working with a Portuguese manufacturer. So tell me about that.
Well, Portugal is like renowned for ceramic manufacturing. And I think for them, it's not just an industry, it's really part of the cultural patrimony, like this, like they do ceramics, like hello, tiles, that's like a big part of their culture. So they really do it right. And it's Europe. So like the working conditions and the regulations, even just as far as like water usage or things like that, are like really good. And I am Portuguese. I'm third generation. So my family's been here for quite a while. I don't speak Portuguese. We do have some dishes that we make like around the holidays, but I have really been wanting to reconnect to that heritage, and manufacturing in Portugal gives me a reason to go there more often and really sort of like connect to a part of me. Like it feels very sort of like I'm making things that I want to make that fulfill my soul, and I get to do it in a place that fulfills my soul. Like it's all very, like I just am like really trying to tie it all together. It feels really
Yeah.
good. So Portugal for all those reasons, like for a personal reason, but also for like an excellence reason, for a quality reason. And then to find the factory, we had to reach out to a ton of them, and just see, these are our sketches. This is our idea. Can you do this? Like, what are your minimums? And a lot of factories be like, we can't do that, or we only do this, or we won't do it that way. It was a lot of, we must have reached out to like 20 factories.
Wow.
And then eventually we kind of whittled it down. We had like probably 5 strong contenders. So I went to Portugal and we met with all of them. And there was one that really stood out for a number of reasons, but really like they were making like real true strides towards sustainability that nobody else was doing. And it wasn't something that was like, the government wasn't forcing them to do it. Like they were really just investing in this. So my dinnerware, and I think it's important to talk about this because I think it's important. I think this day and age, like if we're going to make things, like we just have to be responsible business owners and make them in a good way.
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, like I'm not really setting out to make like an eco company that I'm going to brand all with like green leaves
Yeah, it's not
and
marketing. Like it's like these are my
no,
values and
exactly.
I feel very
It's just
strongly
like
about that.
we also have to just do it the right way. Like
Yeah.
the point for me is to make something beautiful, something long lasting, something that really makes people's lives better, you know, something that brings joy. Like I have so many sort of like higher priority goals and maybe even values for the business, but I can't just like disregard, you know, the environmental impacts or the other things. So what I love about this factory is that like the whole factory, besides the kilns, because they use a ton of energy, but the rest of the entire factory is all powered by solar panels.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is so cool. Like we've never seen any other factory doing that. Also, in ceramics, I've been saying recycled clay with my product because it's like the easiest way to kind of condense it into, you know, a few words, but it's not 100% accurate because in the ceramics process, you shape your wet clay and then you let it dry. And once it dries, you know, you put it through the kiln and then it vitrifies. So like it like chemically changes
Hmm.
after going through the heat. And after that, the clay can no longer be recycled. It's trash. Before that, like if you make a bowl and you like it's wet and you like trim the foot, because that clay is still wet, you can recycle that. Like that can
Hmm.
you can put that in a bucket and you can mix it with other scraps and then you can kind of like knead it all back together and like keep using that. But this factory has found a way to use all of those like post vitrification like moments of waste that happen throughout the production process. So something comes out of the kiln, it gets sanded, something's broken, you know, and especially like after something's been glazed, you can't reuse it.
Sure.
They've found a way to take all of this material and recycle it back into the like to the body of the clay.
That's
So the
incredible.
clay is made from 90% of like factory waste, basically,
Wow.
which is groundbreaking. Like
That is
it's
groundbreaking.
wild. It's
Is that like a
wonderful.
proprietary
Oh yeah.
tech? Yeah, I bet.
So yeah, oh yeah. They did something. Like they
Yeah.
really did a big thing. Yeah. And it's pretty new. Hopefully they will share their technology, you know, their
Sure.
notes because like we have to make things better, right? Like to the best we can. So
Yeah.
hopefully that'll spread. I don't know.
So you chose I love that you chose, the connection to Portugal, the like the personal connection, but also knowing the excellence there, um, choosing a factory aligned with sustainability and your values, not just marketing ploy. So once the factory's been chosen and you have your 3D printed materials, what does that look like for the next step?
So from there, we send them our sketches, but it's not like the pencil sketches. The developer has to kind of put them into like a tech pack, right? So it's like very
Okay.
technical drawings, and the drawings are sent to the factory. The factory reviews the drawings and often sends back new drawings where they make some adjustments based on production need.
Okay.
We approve those drawings or not, or go back and forth, you know, well, no, but we don't want to make that change, or, you know, how can
Yeah.
we compromise or whatever.
What kind of
So
what kind of
once,
changes would they send back?
well, like with my factory, they like completely changed all my shapes like immediately because they were like, well, this is just going to be way easier and we can do it in this machine and it's, you know, it's going to be way cheaper. And I was like, that's not my collection. Like you literally, like you killed the collection. Like that's, we said, no, like go back, like
Yeah.
go back, you
Yeah.
know? So they did. And then, like, oh my God, you should have, I was just like, what is this? This is like not what I drew. It's totally, you know, they were like, we streamlined it. And I was like, no, thank you.
Nope.
Um, but then once they went back, there were certain things they wanted to change. So I had wanted my foot on the bottom of the plate to be, uh, like pretty wide. I wanted it to be, I don't know, between like approaching a centimeter, not quite, maybe like 7 millimeters. And they just because of a production technicality, they were like, we really can only do this like maybe 5 millimeters. Like it's probably going to be like 4. So there were certain things like that they need it for production. So,
Sure.
okay, can I let go of that? Or how much does that compromise like the original intent? I really didn't want my large plate to have a second ring on the bottom. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted it to just have one foot. And that was very important to me. And that was actually probably the most heartbreaking compromise that I had to make.
Oh.
But I had to choose because my plate is very, very flat and wide, which I love. And it's fairly thin um for like for large scale production. So they could either do 1 foot and make the plate thicker, or they could keep it as I had intended, but they had to add the second ring so that it wouldn't collapse.
Oh.
Because when it was firing, it was collapsing. They were testing it. So there were just, there's things like that that sometimes you just have to make a choice, and what
Yeah.
is the thing that kind of more, and ultimately most of my friends were like, nobody's looking at the second foot except for you. I don't even know what that is. So I was like, fine, okay, I'll let it go. But that one hurt.
Sure.
Yeah. And so those are the things you might go through in the drawings phase. But once we kind of like get to a place where we agree, then, we sign off on that and then they start making molds. And there's like a first set of molds that's for prototypes. And then they do different molds for production because those ones are the ones that'll like really get like worn out. Whereas like the original molds are kind of like the references that they'll go back to.
Sure. How did you
Yeah.
determine like what textures you're using and what color palette and what glazes?
I guess based on like me, my vision, my feelings about this brand and what I want to see and what I think works or what I think is beautiful and adaptable. And I have a color currently that I'm calling oat because it's an off-white, it's creamy, but it's not like a yellowy cream, especially because the clay is a brown color. It has this very grounded like taupe undertones to it. Um, and I'm not I don't really love black and white. I think that they're really harsh.
Oh, yeah.
And I think they can feel kind of sterile. But I do really like contrast. Like I don't love midtones. And this is like true in my styling work too. Like
Absolutely. Yeah.
the way I dress, the way I style a space, the way I pick props for a cookbook. Like it's just like this is kind of the way my brain works, like the things that I like. This is like my filter. So it's just applied now to the dinnerware. So I've got this, this lighter tone, but it's got to be like 10-15%. We got to like bring it in so that it's softer. And then I want to make a darker color. And the darker color too, it won't be a black, but it'll be like, like an 85%. It's going to be like a slate color, which
Yeah.
is like my favorite color in the whole world is like an inky, almost, is it black, is it blue, like midnight kind of like I just like everything. You should see like half my house is like that
Oh, no, I
color.
know, and it's so funny
Yeah.
because like,
I'm like, even though you've
whenever
seen
I
it.
mean, I look at the props behind you, I look at, like, your studio space, and I look at what you're wearing, and then I think of, like, how you style your home, and then we've talked about this before, like, look at, like, this fluorescent poster behind me,
Oh
pink
yeah.
lipstick, it's like, I'm all about just, like, loud and color, and we style our home so differently, we have, like, different color preferences, but it's just, like
Yeah.
but it doesn't change the fact that, like, you know, neither way is right, but, like, you
No.
clearly have, like, such a you're so drawn to, like, that color palette, and I
Yeah.
love that like, you stick to it, it's like, This is mine, and I love it," and,
Yeah.
like, I those that's what I wanna see more of in the world.
I do. That is what I want to see more of in the world. Like this is my vision. I'm doing this brand to do me.
Yeah.
As a commercial artist, I've been doing everybody else kind of through my lens for my whole career. And I'm really excited to do me,
Yeah.
to really just get to dig into that.
Because like, Pillar, your the store that you had for a bit, it was still a reflection of you because you were curating all the makers and cookbooks and blankets, which I still have on my couch at home. I love that blanket so much. And you're curating things that, you know, you love, makers you love,
Hmm.
and things that you would want to see in other people's homes, but they still weren't yours. So it's kind of like that was almost like an in-between phase of,
Yeah.
you're curating things and it's fleeting. Photo shoots are
Yeah.
fleeting. You create something beautiful and then, all right, on to the next shot, clear it, next one. Whereas Pillar was this in-between phase of you're curating things, but then they're living at people's homes. And now
Yeah.
this is all you. Like what personal and professional work did you do to get to that point? Because I know you worked with a business coach for a bit, or a career coach.
I worked with a career coach.
Yeah.
Pillar was so satisfying in so many ways, and then kind of not checking some of the boxes for me.
Well, you
So I
opened at
was,
a really tough time.
yes, that's true too. So maybe for the listeners, I worked on my shop, the concept and buying and getting everything together and building out the space for a year. And then my grand opening day was the day we went into lockdown. So never mind, I did not open. So that was,
Yep.
yeah, it was a really weird first year
Sure.
or two to like be in business.
Yeah.
By the third year, it like felt like we were starting to really, get some more traction and level out. But by that third year, I still was sort of realizing just that it didn't check certain boxes for me. Retail is really like a weekends and holidays business.
Mm-hmm.
And I have two small children. Like I want to be home on weekends. So, but I didn't want to be away from the shop because that's when most of the people come in and I want to know my customers and I want to talk to them. And
Yeah.
I met so many great people through having that shop. There was really a little community forming there that really was important to me. And some of the best friends that I have in Portland to this day, I met actually through my shop. So like some of it was so great, but it kind of put me in that position too, where I was like, well, but I also, I want to be home with my family. Like I want to sort of do this same kind of thing, but I think I maybe need it to look a little different for me. So I had some soul searching to do on it. And that's when I decided to work with a career coach. I had been ready to grow in my career years before. I had been ready to grow. I felt like the workout wasn't hard anymore. Like how can we make this thrilling again? And I tried for a while to figure it out on my own because that's what we're supposed to do. We're all supposed to be able to solve our own problems because we're all supposed to always have the answers for everything and be, whatever. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like,
Yep.
yeah. So, so I
Infallible,
tried.
all knowing. Yeah.
Right. Like I know everything about me. Who's going to tell me? I don't know. I was like, I can figure this out. I'm a smart person. I'm going to figure it out. But I kind of just was running in circles for a while. And then the shop was like sort of an idea that I always had. Like I'd always sort of been like, oh, maybe that would be a fun thing to do, because like I obviously love objects. I love curating. I'm like, hello, like put them in a shop. So an opportunity arose. I was moving studios. I ended up getting a studio that was actually a storefront. And I was like, well, great. I'll make the front a storefront then, and I'll make the back my studio. So I just like leaped, I just decided to like do the thing, try it out.
Yeah.
And it was cool. But like I said, I got a few years in and I was like, okay, maybe this isn't the thing. And so I had been thinking for a couple of years, like, what am I going to do next? And then I did a thing and I tried it for a couple of years and that wasn't the thing. And I was just like, all right, how many years am I in at this point? I don't really want to just like leap again. I don't want to just like try another thing and go down this road and then realize it's not the road for me. Like I felt like I had a bunch of ideas, but I felt like my head felt like kind of murky, like kind of cloudy, and they were all kind of floating around in there. And I didn't really know how to look at them like objectively or sort of like compare them to each other or assess them, like how do I
Mm-hmm.
make a decision about any of this? And with the shop, it's like, I just did it. And I don't want to I didn't want to do that again. Like,
Sure.
I didn't want to waste more time just like chasing what like maybes. I wanted to be like, no, this is really the thing, like,
Yeah, it's
and
still a
really,
risk trying something new, but at least here there's like strategy and,
yeah.
a calculation behind it.
Definitely. And I feel like this is a road I can go down for a long time because there's a lot of possibility for evolution here. But I've already thought through all of this. I know the kind of lifestyle this could make for me. I know the kind of income this could make for me. I know the kind of creative growth I could get out of this because I really did the work to sit down and like think through the different paths before committing to one. And now I am committed, you know? I think, yeah, I just got to a point where I was like, I feel like my brain works a certain way and it's just going to kind of keep coming up with the same answers in the same way. And isn't that like the definition of insanity? It's like doing the
Yes.
same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And I was like, that's what I'm doing. Because like my brain just has a certain pattern, obviously. Like I felt like a hamster on a wheel. And I was like, if your roof breaks, you get like a contractor, you know what I mean? Like you just like if you have a cavity, you go to the dentist. Like there are people who specialize in things and they can fix them for you and you don't have to fix everything yourself.
Yeah.
So I got a coach and like life changing. Like seriously, like the best thing I've ever done in my whole life.
That's amazing. Like what's like your biggest takeaway? I mean, outside of defining and figuring out like what your career and creative growth would be, but um how like what are like some big lessons that you learned from that time?
You know what? Like 50% of it was the figuring it out and looking at it and having the tools to kind of think through things more clearly. And 50% of it was mindset.
Huh.
Like 50% of it really was just like more about addressing my thought patterns and my fears. And like those things never go away. Like we're always going to have self-doubt. We're always going to have limiting fears, but learning how to start to recognize them and how to deal with them and how to sort of like we have physical wellness routines, but there's like mental wellness routines, right? And for me, a mental wellness routine is not just like taking a nap. Like taking a nap is wonderful. Oh my God, I never get to do that because I have small children. But like, it's not. I don't want to say anything that like puts down somebody else's self-care routine is all I'm saying. Like, you know, you can do a mask, you can get a massage, like all of that's wonderful. But like there's brain stuff. There's like emotional thought process stuff, you know, that is not when you get a massage, like it doesn't massage your limiting fears out of you. Yeah. It doesn't massage your imposter, you know, syndrome. What's it called? Yeah, right.
Imposter syndrome. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't massage your imposter syndrome out of you. So it's like those, and literally those things I don't think ever actually go away. But just when you get stronger emotionally and mentally at like recognizing them and you can work through them more quickly, or you can be like, no, thank you. I'm not giving you my time today. You know, like, oh, I see you. I see what you're trying to do. And like, no, like we're not going there.
Yeah. Cause like we're our own worst enemies. And especially when it comes to imposter syndrome, it's like there's like the lizard brain, you know, the pixies flying around, however you want to call that voice, you know, it's trying to distract and to make you feel less than. And
it's usually trying to make you not grow because growth is scary. That's risky. Don't take any risks. We're happy here. We're healthy. We're just fine. We're just fine. Don't go there.
We're good. We don't need to grow.
Exactly. Why? Like, and you can't grow unless you go into that uncomfortable zone, right? Unless you really push your comfortable limits and go outside of, like, yeah, your brain doesn't want to do that.
What was the most uncomfortable part of developing your dinnerware line? Because I would imagine, you know, you were working with existing objects in creating somebody else's story. So storytelling through other objects. And now you're creating the objects themselves to create your own story. And I would wonder like how that shift changed your relationship to the creative process and if there were like some real pain points during that.
There are pain points when like, you know, I would have this idea of a thing I wanted to create and like, you just can't create it. Like it just doesn't exist, you know? I really wanted to make this like a porcelain dish that maybe looked a certain way and then had like a really reactive glaze on it. And like reactives are so limited in porcelain, particularly like in commercial production. There are some small scale potters that have like done some interesting things, but it's not they can't do that at scale, so I'd be like, but I really want to do this with this, and it's like, well, that's just not possible. So you kind of have these ideas sometimes, like you have like a fantasy of what the thing is going to be, but then there's a reality of what it can be. So you have
Mm,
to sort of take, like for me, it was like taking that and like adapting it to what's actually possible and still pushing. Like I pushed my factory, like I was like, I want this thinner. I want this like this, and they did not always want to do what I was asking them to do. But
yeah.
like I had to make a lot of compromises, but I also think like I got a lot. Like I won a lot of battles. So I think like that part can be tough because you just want it to be a certain way and like it just can't.
Yeah. And I'm sure like you're also managing too, I'm sure you had a timeline in mind for when you wanted it to launch. And then with all these iterative tweaks and changes, you keep on having to like put this massive creative transformation that you're working towards on hold again and again and again, just kind of wait. And that must be like when I think of like uncomfortable moments, like that must have been excruciating.
It was frustrating. I probably delayed my launch by a year.
Yeah.
Um, but like also naively, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna launch this company in like 6 to 8 months. Like, oh, it's gonna be that fast. But then you get into it and you learn all the things that you don't know. And I didn't know, I didn't realize like how long, like if you white label something, it can be very fast. But when you're really developing something from scratch, like it takes a long time. Um, but I also wasn't going to abandon that because it was essential that it be mine and that it be exactly the way I wanted it. So it just takes the time that it takes then. There's a lot of continuously readjusting my expectations because I'd set an expectation and then it wouldn't happen and that would be so disappointing. It'd be disappointing because maybe felt like I wasn't making it happen or it wasn't working or is it ever going to work? Is it ever going to happen? You know, but I also think that, like you said, having to postpone um, your self change or something.
Yeah.
And the truth is, like, the change was happening that whole time. Like, that was the
Sure.
change. You know how they always say, like,
Yeah.
there's no destination, like, it's the journey? Like,
Absolutely.
it's really been the journey. Like, the journey and adapting, compromising, pushing, advocating, like all of that has really been the journey. And I've learned a lot about how to create a product in this way, and bring it to market. But I also, it's changed me, like my resilience, my, again, like mindset, like the way I approach things, or the way I have to think about things. A lot of those expectations that I was so disappointed to not, fulfill, they were all expectations that were set by me.
Sure.
So, like, what did I want more? Like the product I wanted or to like meet that expectation? Like, like it's within my power to move past, the disappointment of that expectation or to like really reframe that so that it's not disappointing, so that maybe it's an opportunity or it's
Yeah.
a better path.
Yeah, because you don't know what you don't know. So like viewing that as like a
Totally.
learning experience versus just a series of obstacles and enjoying the journey versus, I just really want this to launch. Because I'm sure like if your mindset was, I don't I just want this to launch and I just want this to be over with and I just want it to get there. Like I'm sure you would have made a lot of different decisions when it came to advocating for your vision. It would have become less about the vision. It would have become more about like hitting a deadline or
Yeah,
whatever other reason.
totally. Then you prioritize something else. But is that really the priority? Like, what's really the priority? What's really the goal?
Yeah, so Standard Affair launched in May of 2025 and I wonder like what does it feel like to now have created objects that could live in somebody's daily routine for years? Cuz these aren't plastic plates. These aren't paper
No,
plates. These are works of art, and that was
thank
like
you.
part of the vision. These are gorgeous pieces that like you would feel that feel right at home in like a high level shoot, but also feel right at home, like on any dinner table. They are absolutely gorgeous, and anything you can make in them looks beautiful in them. Like, what does that feel like, especially considering like these creative growth plans you had? Like, is this what you wanted? What you expected? Like, what have you gleaned from the first couple of months having this launched?
The fulfillment is like so real. Like it's really, I really, people have been receiving them in their homes. Like some people maybe post on Instagram about it, or, or they'll write like a really sweet note, and I've gotten so much great feedback, and like it really touches my heart to know that like people are like making their meals on these plates and like sitting around a table with people they love, or like hosting their dinner parties, or maybe even just like whatever, having your yogurt in the morning, but like this is like a part of somebody's life and they touch this every day, and like it just makes me so happy that it's makes them happy, like it's amazing. It's great. It's like everything I hoped for. Like,
And it kind of reminds me too, with styling being considered to be a service industry, like this is also in service of creating beauty in the
oh yeah.
everyday. It's in
Yeah.
service of like just practically, like you have a bowl, you have a plate that you can put food on, but it's this balance of art and life.
Yeah. And you eat 3 times a day, you eat 3 meals, like those should be enjoyable moments. Like if you life isn't your one big vacation that you saved up to do 10 years ago or whatever. Like life is everything you do, all those tiny little moments throughout the day. So it's like if you can incrementally improve all of those tiny things, all of that adds up over the course of a month or a year, to how much does that then improve your whole life, your whole like enjoyment. I'm like very, very aware that am not I'm not curing cancer. Like there are people who are doing like real work out in the world to like actually save lives, that is amazing and essential. I think that people can think that this type of work is not important because it's just creative, it's not. But it's really important because this work is the work that gives people relief from the stress of life.
Yes.
And life is going to come with stresses, like things are going to happen. I don't know, like somebody you love is going to get cancer or die, or like you're going to get sick, or like, I don't know, like, or whatever, like, or there's a natural disaster, or you lose your home, or like, think of all the different things that happen in life. Those are all very large examples, but like there are smaller, but like life can be hard,
Yeah.
right? So I think that beauty isn't a shallow pursuit. Like it's something soothing. It's something really human. It's our counterbalance, for the world out there. So like I think like if setting a beautiful table that feels like the best version of you and you can share that with the people you love, like I think that adds up.
Yeah. I wanted to go back to like how involved and how like considered the human aspect of creating your line is. You worked with a developer, and I think, you're working with manufacturers where like at every part of the process, there's actually people creating these. Isn't, there isn't a factory line, there isn't, robots doing the glaze or whatever. But I think,
Well, actually, there is.
okay, tell me more.
Yeah, no, there is.
Yeah.
It's a factory.
Yeah.
I do not want to greenwash my products. Like I have definitely seen other manufacturers using either my same factory or factories that I have visited, and they very much greenwash their products, right? Like these are all handcrafted or handmade. And I'm a person who's honest to a fault. And I don't want to greenwash. I want to be really honest. I want to be like really clear. Like they're made in a factory, but they're also like made by people. And there is this is a craft, like this is a trade that people go into. And so there are machines that press the pieces. But the clay, for example, like, they gather their clay and they bring it over to their station, the workers, and and they cut the pieces and they're the ones putting it into the thing. And then the machine will press it. And the machine probably presses it because it can apply more
Right.
pressure or because it's a machine, right? Like it can probably do it harder and faster or more evenly or whatever it is, but then they're taking it out and they kind of trim it and then, and then they're putting it out to dry. So I think there's a difference between manufacturing, which does exist, where you literally just feed clay in on one end and it comes out fully glazed and baked on the other end, where just there's like no human interaction with that. There's no human looking at something and being like, is this right? Does this need a little touch?
Sure.
Should I do a little zhuzh here? I also think like my plates don't all weigh the same amount because I don't think that people weigh the clay because I think they've been doing it so long. They slice it. Like they know, like they just kind of do it by muscle memory. So, they'll be off a couple ounces from each other.
Yeah.
And that's human, So there is like a marriage of like technology and like craftsmanship in my factory. And realistically, like I'm making something at large scale. So the technology helps at scale. Mm-hmm. But there's still a human element that I think makes everything like that imperfect perfect, It makes it so like that a human was here, that there was soul here, there was consideration here. And so it goes through all those different stages. It'll go to shaping, it'll go to glazing, it'll go into the kiln, it gets stamped afterwards. All the handles on the mugs are all applied by hand. But at all these different moments of the process, there's all these different people who are ushering the pieces through and looking at them and taking care of them. And I think that's important.
Yeah. And even going back further to,
I think it's impactful is maybe what I should say.
Sure. Yeah. But even going back to like, you worked with a developer rather than, I'm sure there are folks out there that would, I have an idea for a sketch. Let me just throw this into ChatGPT to have it spit the sketches back out to me. Like how important is it to you to be working and partnering with somebody versus perhaps going the more streamlined route of just like, the cost around having a developer as a partner, just create those sketches. Like, talk to me a little bit about that.
Any investment is way worth it because, she's also a person with a whole career behind her who has a ton of experience and a ton of her own ideas. And I obviously come in like with some pretty clear ideas, but she will say things that will shape those ideas or help, move them in one direction or the other. It's great to have a collaborator in that way. And I think she can bring a lot of value, beyond just like I could do all the sketches myself and then just send them to somebody to like, pay them an hourly rate to just like redo them on the computer or in 3D. But I really like working with a person that I trust and whose work I really like. I think it strengthens the entire process and the end product.
So like when I think of like immediate creative satisfaction of like you're on set, you're styling, something is beautiful, then it's cleared away. So it's almost like that dopamine hit of like, I got this, great. And then on to the next one. And it's you're chasing versus, the long-term vision of building standard affair. Like how has that like warped your brain at all of like having to rewire, like how am I getting that creative satisfaction?
Well, I'm still on set. So I'm still styling. So I'd still have those moments and that's great. You said that and like the thing that jumps into my mind is I was listening to a podcast yesterday and they were talking about how there are short-term satisfactions and then long-term satisfactions. And what they were saying is there's some psychological research or study that suggests that when you are working towards a long-term goal, making strides towards that goal is actually more satisfying than short term. And like the example they gave was like working out is hard, but if you work out every day, over time you get really strong, you feel really good, your energy is great, you know. And so there's that, which is like the more long term thing, or there's like eating a donut, you know. And like eating a donut's still great. Like I don't think they were trying to be like never eat a donut ever again. But they were kind of like eating a donut's like the short term thing where you're kind of like that was cool, but actually maybe I kind of feel like shit after eating it.
Yeah.
But I mean it was yum. But like I don't know, you know. But now it's over. Goodbye.
Yep.
But they were like, but when you're working towards that long term thing, like that's sometimes where you're like, you know what? I don't think I want the donut actually.
Sure.
Because it's not really going to give me the thing I really want. You know. I think that it might be kind of like that. Like it wasn't like it took more than 2 years to launch the company. Took probably 2 years to develop the product. But it wasn't like I went 2 years with no satisfaction. There were things that happened along the way.
Like milestones for sure.
Yeah, exactly. There were, you know, like getting the drawings done, you know, there were certain moments where it was like, all right, like it's like starting to take shape, you know, it's starting to happen. And I think I've only just launched this company. It's still so new and so far has felt very rewarding, but I think I'm really investing in something long term. So like those rewards can keep coming. Like I feel like they'll keep paying dividends. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. Like how have your interpretations of success and failure shifted throughout your career?
I don't know. I do think there's, you know, a lot of talk these days about like reframing success and failure, which I believe, but I also think there's a part of me that also just thinks like you need to make money to be a success, you know. You don't need to make like millions. Like we don't need I'm not talking about that, but just
well, I think too, you know, you when you were exploring Pillar, and then even back to what you said earlier in the conversation, like owning a store, it's like it's a weekends and holidays thing. So in order to be successful with that, I have to sacrifice spending time with my family and raising these, like, you know, being there for my kids as I want to be. So, you know, the store could have been the notion of success, but really the success there was living the life that you wanted to lead and like finding
it's
ways
like success at what cost?
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't think that balance is 100% achievable, but I think that we can try and we can find the best balance we can, and that balance may fluctuate. But in the case of the shop, I think I would have been really sacrificing something important to me in service of another thing that was important to me. So in starting this new company, I am trying to find a way to let there be space for all of the things that are important to me. You know, to build a business and build a career that doesn't compete with the things that are important to me, but that supports the things that are important to me. I do think that that is success. Like that is what success would look like. I think success and failure is very multi-layered, like sort of a multi-pronged thing. I guess as I've gotten older, I'm less afraid of failure. Failure doesn't feel so definitive.
Sure.
I think this is maybe actually why this question is a little hard for me, because I think that I don't really think about failure in that way anymore. Like failure feels, you know, it feels like this thing, like you did something bad, you know, like, oh no. And I just
you didn't
think
have
that
the prop that the client randomly asked for, you know?
Oh yeah. And
I failed.
Exactly. Like I don't feel that way anymore.
Yeah.
I feel like I did a great job. I brought a lot of props. And, you know, yeah, I didn't think of that one thing. But, okay, well, that does not mean that I am a failure. That does not mean that this is a failure. That means, like, okay, that was a good idea. I don't have it. How else do we problem solve this? You know? And even, I think that some people would be embarrassed to close a shop after 3 years. And I think they would maybe feel from the outside that they looked like a failure for starting a business and then closing it. I don't feel that way.
Did you ever feel that way?
No, closing
Good
the
for
shop
you.
was always 100% mine, like my idea. And I did it like really, really knowing like why I was doing it and that it was going to be so much better for me. And I loved the shop. So it was, it was a little bittersweet for sure. And there are definitely still times that I miss it. But the day that the light bulb went off that I had to close the shop so that I could make more room in my life, to dedicate myself to the things that were really going to advance me in the ways I needed and wanted to be advanced, it felt liberating. Like it felt like I was like running towards closing the shop. Like it made sense, And so, and the shop wasn't a bad thing. The shop wasn't a failure. And the shop could have become a raging success, like you said, if I had, decided that that was the thing I was going to dedicate myself to.
Sure.
There's lots of right answers. But so I think there's like a reframe around that, I guess, we all have to try. Like, I think the real failure is not trying. The real failure is like stagnancy,
Yeah.
Complacency. It's just like having no ambition or no like desire to take your life somewhere that excites you.
Yeah, there's a Teddy Roosevelt quote, and I'm going to butcher it as I paraphrase it. For those that know neither victory nor defeat and just live in this gray twilight, like that is the most depressing thing. Like you know
Totally.
neither. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause like, I don't know. I mean, you're not always gonna get it right, but also it like a great example is learning a language. Like you have to say so much stuff wrong. You have to like look like such an idiot, like you have to be like, it's very embarrassing to try to speak a new language because you just mess it up so much. But you literally will never be fluent unless you do that.
Yeah.
So you gotta just go fail so that you can get good, like you gotta just go do it. Like,
yeah. And that's like what life is about too. It's like if you're just living a
totally.
life without taking any risks, without trying, it's like what are you doing? Like are you actually living? I don't know if you are.
Yeah, I agree.
Kira's incredible journey reminds us that creative growth often requires us to become beginners again, to trade mastery for possibility. It's uncomfortable, but it's also where the magic happens. Her story demonstrates something I see in successful creative professionals. They understand that their life experiences directly inform and strengthen their work, and they're willing to keep growing even if it means stepping into uncomfortable territory. What moved me most was hearing about the fulfillment she gets from knowing her plates and bowls are a part of people's daily rituals. There's something profound about creating objects that enhance ordinary moments. That's not shallow work, it's essential work. In a world that can feel increasingly disconnected, the things that help us slow down and appreciate beauty matter more than ever. Thank you for listening to Creatives Processing. If you're a creative professional navigating your own evolution, I'd love for you to share this episode. I think Kira's insights about balancing artistic vision and commercial reality are invaluable. You can explore Standard Affair, Kira's Homewares line, at standardaffair.co and follow her work there at Standard Affair on Instagram. You can see her styling work at kiracorbin.com and follow her at Kira Corbin on Instagram. I'm Sarah Mulligan-Williams, and I run Word of Mouth, a creative studio where I help mission-driven organizations navigate that space between creative vision and business reality. You can find my work at wordofmouthcreative.co or connect with me directly on Instagram at Creatives Processing or by emailing creativesprocessing@wordofmouthcreative.co. Till next time, stay human, stay curious. Thanks for listening.